Kaiser Adolf Hitler the Hohenzollern was never convicted of a criminal offence in his lifetime. He was born the 20th of April, 1889, and died on the 20th of April, 1982, aged exactly 93. He was born in Gippsland, Victoria, Australia, and died in Gippsland, Victoria, Australia. His body was safely buried in a local Gippsland cemetery, next to his uncle Kaiser Friedrich Hohenzollern IV, who died in Gippsland in June 1916, as he had prearranged himself. During his lifetime he was only charged with one minor criminal offence. When he escaped the Yugoslavian prisoner of war jail, he was illegally detained in between December 1943 and 1959. He traveled to Italy like a wanted fugitive, mostly on foot. After he crossed the border into Italy, he asked for help at a small northeastern Italian convent. A number of photographs were taken of him after he arrived and informed the convent residents who he was. He was unsure how many years he had been detained, as the cell was underground and heated to around 31 degrees Celsius constantly. He lost track of seasons and years. He estimated around 13 years when questioned, then was informed it was actually 15.5 years, based on the date of his abduction. When in the convent in Italy, he was offered assistance with his wounds. He had to explain to the residents of the convent he was given help from what to do to treat his wounds. At one point he very carefully explained how to use iodine to disinfect a wound. He had to carefully explain to the person helping him why raw iodine could not be used, and why it had to be mixed with other substances and diluted. Whilst he was explaining it, the person helping him suddenly started to pour raw undiluted iodine on one of his wounds. Kaiser Adolf quickly reacted by gently trying to punch the vial out of that person's hand, and accidentally got that person in the jaw on the follow-through. He was an extremely muscular man when he escaped prisoner of war jail. He had exercised almost daily in his cell for over 14 years, using anything he could find. The convent residents attempted to have him arrested and charged with assault over the incident. He was processed by local Italian police. The preliminary charge that was laid is the only record that appears if law enforcement or intelligence agencies searched to see if he had a criminal history, using modern cross-referenced database methods. The entry that appears has been almost staring back at those agencies, since Italian law enforcement records were converted into digital files in the age of the modern computer. The charge was laid in the year 1960. The charge was laid against Hitler, Adolf. The listed date of birth of the person charged was the 20th of April, 1889. It was listed as a minor assault charge. A statement was taken from the relevant parties. During the investigation, after the statements were completed, it was deemed that the punch had been in self-defense, to attempt to stop the person with the vial causing severe pain by pouring more raw iodine on an open wound. After discussing it with the people who made the complaint, the charge was then withdrawn. Any modern law enforcement or intelligence agency with access to those digitized historical records, which include images of the original documents in some cases, can see that record if they search the criminal history of Hitler, Adolf. The charge was laid almost 15 years after Fritz the female impostor was found dead pretending to be Kaiser Adolf in a bunker in Berlin in 1945, on top of a deceased Janet Podolsky pretending to be Eva Braun. Fritz was around half Kaiser Adolf's age at the time of her death. It was also laid around a year and a half before Kaiser Adolf took diplomatic asylum in Italy, on around the 12th of August, 1961. The infamous Berlin Wall began being constructed the day after Kaiser Adolf took diplomatic asylum in Italy, approximately, in response to Italian authorities informing both German governments of the agreement. It began as a fence with wire, then became a bricks and mortar wall. It was later rendered, painted, and graffitied to make it look like the exterior of the 1-inch thick concrete prisoner shoes Kaiser Adolf had to wear for 15.5 years in prisoner of war jail. When completed, it left a no-man's land area between the east and west sides of the wall. That area was just large enough to fit the railway lines that Kaiser Adolf's jail cell was underneath in Yugoslavia, looking like an exact copy of the multitrack route in some areas. The infamous bunker in Berlin that both Fritz and Janet, imposter Adolf and Eva, were found dead inside in 1945, was then stated to be in between the walls, whether that be true or not. The general consensus amongst the average lunatic at the time was that it was built to try to create the impression that Germany would be reunified, and the wall taken down. Kaiser Adolf would be contacted by German authorities. He would be publicly announced as alive and well. Publicly cleared of suspicion for any war crimes, atrocities or other illegal offences, as he had already been privately after an 18-month interrogation. Then allowed to return to Germany, and quietly resume being Kaiser. If he openly pretended he was in a sexual relationship with a female, or possibly attempted sexual contact with one, including on a regular basis. As if some sort of punishment for a miscarried illegally bred, and deliberately inbred, fetus in 1944, which was the result of a failed terrorism extortion pregnancy, to try to steal my imperial family off Kaiser Adolf in prisoner of war jail. Some people then behaved as if that was the deal on offer. A demand similar to what illegally detained homosexuals received when held and victimized after Kaiser Adolf was abducted and made a prisoner of war, in Putsch-controlled, one-gender-only, homosexual-only prison camps, until the end of World War II. Without actually telling him, or delivering any demands or conditions. They just danced, hand-signaled, and paraded around him, whilst stalking him, pretending he had to figure out what to do to get back to Germany, and resume being Kaiser by watching their every move, if he wanted the public let know he was alive and well, and no war criminal. Kaiser Adolf Hitler the Hohenzollern was in jail for around 17 years in his lifetime, 1923 to 1924, and 1943 to 1959, without ever being trialed for, or convicted of, a criminal offence. He never so much as received a parking ticket during his 93-year lifetime. Prince Imperial Sir Brian Webb the Hohenzollern, until next time.